I think one of our challenges is that the more successful we become, the less likely it is that we pause and question our own core assumptions. A lot of people question capitalism post the financial collapse. Few of those conversations really go to the depth of thinking that I think is required. I spent 20 years on Wall Street kind of learning a craft and a trade that enables me to be an informed critic of the way the system currently works. The issues are much more profound than I think we collectively have woken up to. And at the root of it is the way our economic system works and the way finance drives the economic system. And I'm not talking about the bad behavior that led to the financial collapse. That's in many ways just a symptom of a problem. The problem is a much more systemic one. So I was standing in my dressing room looking in the mirror and saw myself and said to myself, it's people like you who are successful and think you're so smart that are the only people that don't really understand the way the world needs to work. And yet the people that understand the way the world needs to work feel hopelessly disempowered to affect the system because the people that run the system are so entrenched in their way of thinking and worldview. I wouldn't be working on this work had I not spent years in a very uncomfortable place of questioning a lot of core assumptions and then realizing that things weren't really the way they seemed and I wasn't as smart as I thought I was. The world order as I understood it and thought made total sense became increasingly questionable in my mind, and certainly the most profound piece being this notion of an economic system that's predicated on exponential growth, which requires exponential use of materials, fundamentally doesn't work on a planet that's fixed in scale. The math simply doesn't add up. And a lot of people will nod their head and say, yeah, that's a problem. And then we go back to doing just what we've been doing. So it's kind of an intractable problem. And I believe the root of it is in how we think about the purpose of investment capital. What is it that we're trying to accomplish when we invest our money? The core purpose of investing as understood in our system is to invest money in order to grow that capital into more money. We have a system that is designed to optimize the growth of financial capital, return on money, at the expense of the stock of natural capital, nature, and increasingly at costs of social capital. We have an imbalance between, a system that very nicely grows financial capital, thinking that will solve the prosperity of humanity. That's a system that I don't think ultimately is going to work because it's a reductionist approach to thinking that you can manage just the money piece separate from the environmental consequences or in the social consequences that the economic activity that money stimulates causes. And so it's reductionist thinking as opposed to holistic thinking. And just like in the world of medicine, there's been a big movement now toward thinking more holistically about human health. My belief is that we need to have a similar shift in our economic thinking. In many ways, a lot of what we need to understand, we already know. What we don't know is how to cause the system to shift. We understand what's wrong with the system. We don't know how to change it. In many ways, our problem is that the finance system behaves and believes that it's on top of the economic system driving it, when it needs to see itself as underneath it in service of it. And that's tricky when our culture and our system rewards finance people with the most money, the most power. It's pretty hard as humans to remain in a position of service. The will to fix the system begins with the will and curiosity to be open to having to rethink the way we think the world works. And that's not easy for people to do. That's threatening to academics, that's threatening to people in positions of power. No one likes to wake up one day and decide that their understanding of the way the world works is flawed. If these problems weren't truly civilization threatening, if we don't get this right, it would seem easier to be comfortable as a philosopher and just pursue the questions for the sake of the questions. But the questions have profound importance to the future of life on this planet. And the time clock is ticking, and we're late. I feel I now have an understanding that I didn't before, and with that knowledge comes a responsibility. We need to recognize the path we're on and put down our somewhat childish ambitions and egos and personal desires and come together and do the right thing.